favourite episode of Series 1 of Bluey, the animated children's TV show airing on Disney Junior, would have to be the Copycat. It is an exploration into Bluey's psyche, how he uses play as a coping mechanism, and it has themings of death and acceptance. Again. This episode of Bluey Reviews is called Death. This episode is about Bluey playing a game with Bandit, her father, before it gets interrupted by the discovery of a dead budgie. It then follows Bluey attempting to accept and overcome her loss. If that sounds like a good concept to you, you are severely mistaken. It's pure brilliance. But then again, a concept is only good as its execution. So, let's discuss that. The episode begins with Bandit, as this is just as much his story as it is Bluey's. He opens his eyes, entering him and in turn us into the story. Sat eagerly before him on the bed is Bluey. Bandit rises up into the frame, above Bluey, who looks up to him. Bluey begins to copy him, taking all of the steps he takes, and whilst it may seem like mockery at first, I believe it's a sign of Bluey's trust and admiration of her father. Bluey starts off repeating Bandit's speech with a few seconds of delay, but by the next shot their actions are completely in sync. Perhaps this is a regular routine for them. And speaking of in sync, they're in the sinks now. Or at them, I suppose. This is where Bandit begins to attempt to trick Bluey into performing silly actions, which she only falls for once because she loves seeing her father's reactions and interactions with these situations. The pace picks up as they begin a jog. A few jokes occur, but the music grinds to a halt as it is interrupted by the tweets of an injured budgie. Budgies are famous for mimicking human speech and also being very energetic, and they're known for being good food. That last part's less important. Bluey asks her father how to react in the moment, as she can't face the responsibility on her own and needs guidance on what to do in the situation from the person she admires. She's told to get a shoebox and a tea towel to make a portable nest, and in the situation stresses over every decision she makes in order to reach the perfect outcome. She has to choose between two tea towels. One is of the homely yet barren outback, and another is of the foreign but towering Big Ben, Elizabeth Tower. When rushed, she decides for the more familiar environment of the Australian outback and races back to the safety of her father's all-knowingness amidst the chaos of the situation. Bandit attempts to calm down the disorganisation, whilst Bluey still stresses over every decision and minor complication. They rush to the vet and hand the animal over. It's early morning, so the vet isn't particularly busy. Bluey is then given the news that the bird has died, and she returns home with Bandit, no longer copying him. Everywhere she looks, she's reminded of the budgie and is unsure how to react. Bandit would know. Bandit would know what to do. So she relives the moments from her story in the game, but from her father, her role model's point of view. She attempts to steer the game in her intended direction, even if it does mean having to relive the budgie's death. She uses her play as a form of coping mechanism, but when it all falls apart, she's left with the lesson her father gave her. It's out of her hands. Concealing herself in a completely scripted utopia won't help with anything, and she just has to accept and move on, and this is her realisation of that. In the end, this episode isn't called Copycat because that's the game Bluey plays with her father at the end. It's because it's how Bluey copes with accepting what's already happened and learning that it's out of her hands.